Montreal. My name is Rochelle and I'm part of the online team. His name is Ritz and he's a cat. So we're gonna jump into worship with John, and then afterwards we're gonna have Gerry, who's gonna be sharing the fourth part of Living Happy with us. Have a great service, everyone.
Bon matin tout le monde, on va louer ensemble. Good morning everyone, let's worship together. Il vient sur les nuées, les rois du monde s'inclineront. Les chaînes seront brisées quand les cœurs déclarent sa louange. Qui peut arrêter notre Dieu? Notre Dieu est le lion de Juda. Il rugit puissamment et il combat pour nous. Tout genou fléchit devant lui. Notre Dieu est l'agneau sacrifié pour les péchés du monde. Son sang brise les chaînes, tout genou fléchit devant le lion et l'agneau. Tout genou fléchit devant lui. Grand les portes, laissez entrer le roi des rois. Le Dieu qui vient sauver et libérer toutes les captifs. Qui peut arrêter notre Dieu? Notre Dieu est le lion de Juda. Et il combat pour nous, tout genou fléchit devant lui. Notre Dieu est l'agneau sacrifié pour les péchés du monde. Son sang brise les chaînes, tout genou fléchit devant le lion et l'agneau. Tout genou fléchit devant lui. You are faithful, you are good. You're the joy that's set before me. You're my source, you're my redemption. You're my beloved company. Call me out upon the waters, beyond the boundaries of my comfort. Where you are, lead me, lead me, lead me out upon the waters, beyond the limits of my vision. Where you are, your river of perfect kindness. You're the voice that beckons me up to my ankles, past my knees, into your beloved company. Call me out upon the water, beyond the boundaries of my comfort. Where you are, lead me, lead me, lead me out upon the waters, beyond the limits of my vision. Where you are, you're fixed on me, I'm fixed on you, straight as an arrow. Your love is true. You're fixed on me, I'm fixed on you, straight as an arrow. Your love is true. Call me out upon the waters, beyond the boundaries of my comfort. Where you are, lead me out upon the water, beyond the limits of my vision. Where you are, where you are, where you are, wanna be where you Je chanterai des chansons faites de ta grâce pour moi. Oh, je danserai des jours sans fin à cause de ton amour. Je chanterai des chants sans fin de ta grâce pour moi. Oh, je chanterai des jours sans fin à cause de ton amour. Mon cœur éclate de joie de ce que tu fais pour moi. Ma vie tu as changé, mon passé effacé. Je veux maintenant crier, depuis les toits chanter. Car maintenant je sais que tu es de mon côté. Je chanterai des chants sans fin de ta grâce pour moi. Oh, je danserai des jours sans fin à cause de ton amour. Tout le monde chante, nous avons ta joie. Danse. Nous avons ta joie. Si seulement on pouvait voir que tu souris quand tu nous vois et voir les anges célébrer joie et danse sérieux. Je chanterai des chants sans fin de ta grâce pour moi. Oh, je danserai jour sans fin à cause de ton amour. I could sing unending songs of how you saved my soul. I would dance 1,000 miles because of your great love. Merci tout le monde. Gerry ou whoever else. Ciao.
Thank you so much for that, John. So while we're all in quarantine, have you guys started anything new? Any new hobbies? Something you've never tried before? Let us know in the comments below. So just before we jump into our message with Gerry, we're gonna let you know about how you can contribute financially to Catch the Fire Montreal. So our mission here is to be able to bless people and really give back to our community. So you can do so in 4 different ways. You can do so through the PushPay app. You can do so with an e-transfer, check in the mail, or directly through our website. All right, off to you, Gerry.
Hi everyone. Hey, who doesn't like saving a little bit of cash? You know, there can be a lot of ways to save a bit of money. Maybe one of those ways is not having to go to that expensive esthetician and that beauty treatment at the spa.
I'm going to paint over this, and I'm going to paint your eyes lipstick. You have to close. Close. Oh! I had to do. You're done. Yeah, that's a little bit. How did that?
You know that it's written that a happy heart makes the face cheerful. There is a special thing that happens in our face even when we have a happy heart. Living happy is a state of being. There are things that can happen in our lives that make us unhappy temporarily, but basically we can live happy and have a good humor as a general aspect of who we are. For some people, you know, they live unhappy and temporarily something can bring happiness to them, but on a general level, they're not living happy. And You know, the Apostle Paul said, I have learned to be happy in whatever state that I am in. And so we can learn to be happy. Let's learn how to live those positive emotions that will contribute to living happy. Now, we've looked at how receiving revelation can contribute to our happiness, how trusting can contribute to our happiness. And today's subject is found in that phrase that the Apostle Paul gives us, remembering the words of the Lord Jesus himself, who said, there is more happiness in giving than in receiving. So we can be happy when we are generous. Generous with our resources. You know, in the context, the Apostle Paul was speaking to Christian believers in the city of Ephesus. And he said to them, you know, I worked hard for 2 years among you. And because of how he worked hard, he explains to them, he was able to give around him, to make people happy around him, to be a blessing to others. And he says, so that's why we need to remember that our Lord said there's more happiness in giving than in receiving. You know, this is a theme that is just all through the Bible. In the Psalms we read, happy is the one who gives interest to the poor. He is happy on this earth. In another place, the Lord talks about how we need to take care of immigrants and orphans and widows that may be living among us. In another place, in Deuteronomy, it talks about if one of our countrymen fall into poverty, that in the place where we are living, that we should open up our hands to him and lend generously, and for that the Lord will bless us and bless everything that we will do. You know why? Because it's in the nature of God to be generous. It's in the nature of God to give. And so when we give, we're being like God. It's part of our new nature in the Lord to give because he gives. And it's part of not only who we are, but what God has called us to. And he has called us, as we've seen in previous sessions, he's called us to live happy. And part of that is living through generosity. You know, a pretty smart person said one day, only a life lived for others is a life worthwhile. That was Einstein. And you know, when we're generous and we give of our resources, oftentimes we don't even see the impact of it when we give. And it's only many years later that it can really be understood what has happened. One of the stories that I love is a story about a little girl named Hattie Wyatt in the city of Philadelphia. We're talking 1882. And this little girl was not able to register for the Sunday school in her city. Now, Sunday schools back then were quite different than today. Many children who were not from families that had the means did not have access to education. And so churches set up schools that were called Sunday schools on Sunday afternoon, and a curriculum was taught to poorer children who were then able to receive an adequate education. And when she could not enroll in the Sunday school, the pastor told her, we don't have any more room. We can't accept any more children. One day we hope to have enough money to build some new buildings so that other children could come. Well, this struck Hattie Wyatt, and she went home, and from that day, she began to save every bit of money she could possibly get in any circumstance. If someone gave her something for her birthday or for Christmas or whatever she was doing, She saved all that money, and unfortunately 2 years later, she died of diphtheria. When her mother told the pastor of that church what she had done, because her mother had found a little purse with 57 pennies in the purse, and a piece of paper folded up where Hattie had written, "This is for the church to build a bigger Sunday school so that all the children can go." The pastor told that story to his congregation on the following Sunday, and people began to give large sums of money. He even had the idea to sell the 57 individual pennies, and people could purchase them for the construction fund. In 5 years, those 57 pennies had become $250,000. Now, in today's terms, I don't know what that would be. 50 million? I'm not sure, but through that, they were able to build an immense Sunday school facility where all of the poorer children of Philadelphia could come. And they had money left over. They built Temple College, which has become today Temple University. They were even able to build a hospital. Samaritan's Hospital was begun by this little offering that Hattie Wyatt took up. When we're generous with our resources because we're looking at how others can benefit, there is a tremendous impact that goes well beyond what we can possibly see. So we need to be generous, but being generous with resources isn't the only way of looking at generosity. We need to be generous with ourselves. Be generous with our lives. Be generous with the gift of self. Just like Jesus, because he gave himself for you. Now he says, "I love you so much." How much? Well, this much, as his arms were stretched out on the cross. Now, to know that he died for you, how does that make you feel? Knowing that you are that important to him, that he gave his life for you, how does that make you feel? You know, when we give ourselves for someone else, that's a statement to that person saying, you know what, you're worth it. You're really somebody in my eyes. And I want to give because you are worth it. And when we give of ourselves for someone, that is generosity. Not only of our resources, but our time. That's what I mean by the gift of self. And this gift of self will bring happiness around us. You remember the story perhaps in the Acts of the Apostles, this lady by the name of Dorcas, who the Bible tells us did so much good all around her. When she died, the widows of the town welcomed Peter, and they were crying as they showed all of the dresses and the other clothes that Dorcas had made for them, these poor widows in the town. The Apostle Paul, in his letter to Timothy, says that Timothy needs to recommend to people who are rich in this present world not to be prideful and not to put their faith or their hope in the riches of this world, but to put their faith and their hope in God, and that God will allow them to enjoy their prosperity. But also, he says, recommend to them to do good and to be rich in good works, to have a liberal heart. So, you know, it's a little bit crazy to put our faith and our hope in riches that can disappear so quickly, that it's not a good foundation for our lives. And when we put our trust and our hope in riches, it's like we're saying to God, I don't know if I can put my trust and my hope in you. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to take care of me, but my riches, that's where I'm putting my faith and my hope. That's getting things backwards. We need to put our faith and our hope in God, and riches are there for us to enjoy, and riches are there for us to have others enjoy, that their happiness may grow. But it's not just material riches, the Apostle Paul says. It's also our time. He says, tell them to be rich in good works. And so we can help someone else. We can accompany someone in something that they're living, or maybe even accompany someone in a practical way who needs a ride to the hospital, or whatever it might be. We can give our time in volunteer work at a hospital, or at a food bank, or another resource that helps people. We can take a child out to an activity that usually this child would not be able to live that. And in a practical way, I'd just like to encourage you, don't say to people, hey, if ever you need something, just let me know, okay? Because 9 times out of 10, that person is never going to let you know. Now, the best thing to do is to say to them, hey, what can I do to help you? Put the question that way. And then open your eyes as well and just see maybe what the person might need and what you could do to help. Being generous is having others at heart. One of the great champions of history, one of my heroes, is William Wilberforce. You may know him. He worked tirelessly for the abolition of slavery when black people were being taken out of Africa and sold as slaves in Europe and in the New World. And William Wilberforce worked for many years for the abolition of the slave trade. And Wilberforce says this: it is the true duty of every man to promote the happiness of his fellow creatures to the utmost of his power. Looking out for the happiness of others, that's generosity. Generosity means as well not looking for anything in return. Jesus said it, right? When you give a great feast, invite the poor. He's saying, don't look when you do something at what that might bring back to you. He says you will be happy that these people cannot give back to you. Hey, who wouldn't want to live like a princess or a prince? Well, here's something that a real princess said, Princess Diana. Nothing brings me more happiness than trying to help the most vulnerable people in society. It's a goal and an essential part of my life, a kind of destiny. Being generous means giving without thought of receiving. Because when we give with expectation that this is going to benefit me, so, I give and now that person kind of owes me one, that's not generosity. To give when someone thinks that this could help me out in the future is maybe shrewd, it's clever, it's astute, it's maybe even cunning, but it's not generous. Generosity is giving when we're not expecting in return, because it's the Lord who's going to make sure that there is a return. I love what it says. Happy is the man who shows mercy, and he gives to the poor. His righteousness will be forever, and his whole head, the Bible says, is lifted up. The imagery is that God is lifting this person in life. Well, speaking of heads, here's another story. Here's another study about how our minds, our mental health can be affected by happiness. And in this particular case, the happiness that generosity brings. This is a study that was published in the Journal of Biobehavioral Medicine in 2018. It's a recent study by Dr. Tristan Inagaki and Lauren Ross from the University of Pittsburgh. They set out to see the impact of generosity in certain activity in the brain. Now, it's already known that people enjoy when they are generous. You know, there's this warm glow that comes. It's like a pleasant sensation that we live inside when we've helped others out. But this research wanted to go further and see what correlation there may be with mental health. So they set out to study what generosity could have as an impact on a certain part of the brain, which is called the amygdala. And you may know that the amygdala is that almond-shaped part of the brain that is responsible for certain emotions triggering tension, stress, anxiety. An overactive amygdala is responsible for what people live with PTSD. And so in this particular study, Inagaki and Ross had 45 people that they brought together, and they were given a task to complete. If they succeeded in completing the task, they were able to give a monetary reward that they were going to receive. They were able to give that to a certain person who was in need that that individual knew of, or the monetary reward was given to a charity in general, or the monetary reward was kept by the individual who completed the task. So in the groups, well, you've probably guessed it already, the group that had targeted an individual who was going to receive the monetary recompense, the monetary reward, had a far reduced activity in the part of the brain called the amygdala, which suggests to the researchers that there is less stress and anxiety that is being lived in that person as they are completing the task. And so their conclusion is this: giving targeted support to individuals, to an identifiable individual, is uniquely associated with reduced amygdala activity, thereby contributing to understanding how giving support may lead to better mental health. The Apostle Paul said it. We must remember the words of the Lord. There is more happiness in giving than in receiving. And we may be a long way from Christmas, but you remember the Christmas story, the Grinch, how the Grinch stole Christmas, that evil, hairy, green guy who lived up in the top of the mountain, and he hated happiness, and he hated all those little people in Whoville that lived always happy, and his worst time of year was Christmas, because at the Christmas season it seemed they were even more happy with their singing and their decorations and their gifts. And he figured that, though the spirit of Christmas and the spirit of happiness must live in those gifts and decorations, so he decides he's going to spoil their Christmas. You know the story. He goes in on Christmas Eve and steals all the presents and the decorations and brings them up into his mountain lair, and he's going to destroy all of those gifts and decorations. After his success, he's surprised on Christmas morning when he wakes up and he can hear this cheerful singing going on in the village at the foot of the mountain, and he can't understand it. And with the help of Cindy Lou Who, if you know the story, he finally comes to an epiphany and a revelation of what happiness is, and he has a change of heart, and this weird creature whose heart was 2 sizes too small gives all the little treasures back to the children and people of Whoville and puts the decorations back up, and it was said that on that day his heart grew 3 sizes. You know, it reminds me of a song that King David would sing. Now I'm able to run in your ways, Lord, because you have enlarged my heart. Now, if in your kind of personality you're not generous usually, well, I want to recommend to you, work on that. Make an effort. Be intentional. Think about how you could be more generous. Someone you could help. And don't be lazy about it. You know, be serious about your happiness. Be serious about, I do want to know what it is to live happy. Practice, practice, practice. Practice being generous. Practice thinking about how I can help someone else. And your heart will grow a few sizes. I guarantee you. So here's 2 things that I want to ask you to do this week. First of all, go to the Lord and say, Lord, I want to ask you forgiveness for being stingy. Stingy with my resources, stingy with my time. And ask forgiveness and renounce the whole idea of being afraid of lacking in the future. Do you know that's something that stops us from being generous? Is when we are afraid that we are going to lack. No, God is going to be there for you. So you need to say, Lord, forgive me for this thought that has been there that you aren't good enough for me. You're not going to provide for me, that I need to trust in my own resources. No, God is going to be there. He is your constant help and strength. So you are going to be free to give. So first of all, ask God to forgive you for any stinginess and renounce all of this fear of lacking. And next, think of someone to whom you could be generous this week. Think of someone and something you could do. What could you do to be generous with your time towards someone? What could you do to be generous with your resources towards someone? And then go out and do it. And I bless you to live a new level of generosity, which I guarantee you will bring a new level of happiness in your life. Practice generosity and you will live happier. So may God bless you with this, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you so much for sharing your heart with us, Gerry. I love this Living Happy message. I don't know about all of you, so if you did like it, you can go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel and like our Facebook page. And if you have any prayer requests or testimonies, you can go ahead and email us, montreal@catchthefire.com. All right, have a great week, everyone. I got some food in the oven, so I'm gonna go get it. Bye.